Well, hello and welcome to another live stream. I hope the sound's all working. I hope everyone's not too hot and bothered. I don't know about you. I love hot weather, but today I wilted a little, I will admit. I think it's just that I need a holiday and I've got one coming up and I know it's coming. So my incentive to push through is just lacking this week. But it's great to be here. Hello to everyone in chat and those who are quietly watching in the background. I think I've already said thanks to the mods many times, but thank you to my mods, to Timber, Digger and Norm. They show up every live stream, keep you guys, or more likely the adult chatbots, in order and make sure everything's working. And thanks to all the regulars and new people. I spot new names. So it's great to have you all here. Today we are talking translucent filament amongst other things. So, I don't know. It's interesting. I started translucent filament journey many years ago, and I'll take you on a little journey through my old videos of what I've done in the past. I can see the flicker though, so I'm just going to go and swap my lights. I'd forgotten the flicker. Oh yeah, now it's just dark. Okay. Whew. That's just, I don't like this light. I feel quite in it. But it's, I don't know why. It must be this new light bulbs that I've got that have gone in. Because since I bought this brand, and sadly I've got about 20 of them, it has flickered on everything that I do. And it is just a little bit annoying after a while, isn't it? Yeah, so anyway, and Tamsin mentioned the flicker. Tamsin has the number 2 crown and Digger has the number 1. If you've noticed crowns in chat, it's a new thing on YouTube in the last few, I don't know, weeks, month. And if you chat a lot, you get a crown. It's very exciting. And Timber's number 3, so there we go. So it might be much better for you guys, but I'm now like being interrogated. It's quite scary. So, well, with that sorted, so we're going to a translucent filament, and I normally start with a quick update on how life's going in the modelling world, basically my modelling world, and yeah, it's going. I am still designing for the next Kickstarter. I do test prints, I find things that don't work. I'm also going to use these for Scut City, so I feel like I'm double designing everything at the moment because I'm designing it to clip on the outside of GridForge. I'm not even sure if that will go in the campaign. I might talk a little bit more about it on Discord or on, or maybe if we run out of time later, about how people would really like it or not. So I've got that decision, but doing 2 lots of everything obviously doubles the amount. And then I've still got the scale issue of short doors and tall doors. So I feel like sometimes I've just done like 5 options for the same door. So I need to sort that because it's just too much to put into a Kickstarter. But anyway, I am working on my next Kickstarter. It's Outbound Station. It's going to be a space station. I know that Ben from Second Dynasty is doing Cocytus Station, which I thought was going to be a lot more like research modules, but it's actually very much like a GridForge space station. So the two will sync together really, really well. And he's concentrated on engineering, hangar bay, and sort of a research lab. I also have got a hangar bay in engineering because like that, and a cargo bay, which are just walls at the moment. I haven't done any contents to them yet. But I've actually, the only real contents I've done are hydroponics, but I'm also going to do all the crew areas. So there'll be like crew rooms, bunk rooms, a mess for when you want to do the whole running through kitchens. And I think what I'm going to do eventually is a second Kickstarter with a dilapidated space station using more or less the same walls, but where in this one I might have a half full cup of coffee on the kitchen, you know, or a mess table. There it'll be like decomposed food and dried stains, which don't really show. So quite a different feel. But hydroponics, instead of having perky plants that go up, it'll be all wilted and dead. So that's definitely there. And I feel like quite often the first bit of any Kickstarter you do, is designing the backbone to it. So for this time, it's the first time I'm doing grid forge. So I'm converting walls and tiles into grid forge. And then the actual exciting, sexy bits that go inside, you kind of do afterwards. So it's a great system. If you don't know it, I've shown it quite a few times on my streams. You print a base which matches your printer, and there's 6 different ones, and you can test it, and then the walls just pop in, the floors pop in. It's really modular. So if you want to do a skirmish setup, like a boarding action or something, or an RPG, it's really useful because you can just keep the same base made up and then just pop stuff in and out. So it's brilliant. Designed by Second Dynasty. Really excited to be doing it as a Kickstarter. And the space station's been on the cards for a couple of years, and eventually I've just got around to doing it. Partly because I wasn't sure how to make it playable for the games I was playing, which was Legion. But actually now I'm playing RPGs rather than Legion, and John, certainly on my streams, one of my RPGers, we actually do it Theatre of the Mind, so we don't even need the models. But it'll be useful for me to make maps and things out if I can set stuff up, take a picture, and there's a map of like a cantina or something like that. I'll make it much easier to do stuff to then put onto our virtual screen so we can see where we are. So that's really cool. So people are saying that now I've sorted the overhead lights, it's fine. And Digger's reminding everyone to hit the like button. Guys, hit the like button, keep Digger happy. And chat away, it does make a difference apparently, having these things. One of the things I've decided, the last Kickstarter didn't go well. Let's just put it that way and leave it at that. I know everybody's down, but it's definitely the worst Kickstarter I've done. And one of the things that I've probably let slacken over the last couple of years is my YouTube channel. And I struggle to fit in designing in the day and then modelling. I'm putting up in a bit my videos, and I just had them playing while I was waiting. I was like, I used to be really good at modelling. I don't think I actually model real physical models much nowadays. And that's not true, but what I'm generally doing is tarting up 3D prints, weathering them, and they're always terrain. I don't really do dioramas or things like that. So my last video where I was upgrading or updating my Jurassic Park video was actually a real breath of fresh air to sit down and do water and do modelling. I didn't have to paint anything, but I did glue some stuff in, and I did get out the tile grout again. So it's been very, very lovely. I'm just going to go with that very British word, to get back to actually doing some physical modelling. And I hope to get more of that on the channel. So anyway, I'm going to put these videos to play. They're basically ones I've done in the past. So if you've seen my channel, you'll have seen all these. And I was looking at this opener going, that's a really cool opener, the bit that says Ice Cave and the design and that. And I'm like, oh, I wonder where I got that from. I'm going to have to go and look it up because I think I'll use that one again. So anyway, I designed this first thing. I'm going to talk about translucent filament quite a bit. I've used it multiple times now. Multiple times actually. And I will come out straight away because I can see Lily who saying, hi Lily, translucent filament is just the thing I need to hear about. Priming car bodies for trains is one thing, giving them windows however. So I'm basically going to say it's probably not clear enough for windows in FDM because you can't sand it. So let me just caveat that. I have done clear resin. I used to always print in clear resin, so I could just do clear resin parts really simply. I tend to have a separate vat now because I find normal resin when you're printing goes down the inside edge of the vat and it's hard to come out, and sometimes comes out and makes misty bits through, even though you think you've cleaned it. So I use clear resin. I use something like Ceratec Blue to clear, and it's really, it says it's blue, but it's BLU, and it is clear. And it's a really nice clear resin. I've also used the Piopoli Phenom clear, which was also really clear. And I know John at Second Dynasty got his down absolutely clear. But my technique then is you sand off the layer lines and then you have to really gloss or recoat them with another coat of the resin to get it to look really clear. And the problem you have with translucent filament is it looks like this when it comes out in FDM. That's not clear. Now, having experimented a bit with it, you do need to up the flow a bit, and you'll get something like this. If you want to do it for trains, which Lily was talking about, and you want to do it for windows, then I think resin is a better bet, because you can sand that. You can take it from the sort of sand off the layer lines, and then you sand all the way up to like the thousands and the thousands. And then if you can get polishing compound, you can polish it even more. And then you spray it with a gloss varnish. Or you put another layer of the clear resin on and just let it drip off and then cure it. And it will go completely see-through. But when you're here and you're trying to do it with translucent FDM, even if you do one layer, that is one layer thick. Can I put my, yeah, you probably really can't see that. It's one layer thick and you can see through it, but actually when I hold it to the light, I can see the layer lines. You know, the little lines that the nozzle puts down. So if you want to do that completely transparent, and these ones are in blue because they're like energy fields, but if you want to do that completely transparent, you would need to be able to sand it. And PLA doesn't really sand. So I think for a lot of these prints, I'm doing this here, they've all got a groove in, so you can put your 3D print, so I print them, these bits flat, obviously, so I get a nice smooth base, and print it on a smooth plate. And then if you can basically take that and sand it, like if you printed an ABS or something, I don't even know if they do a clear ABS, you probably could get it better. You could add, like I'm doing here, UV resin. Probably not the printer one. I find the jewellery one is clearer. I find the printer ones tend to yellow a bit as you try and cure them. But you could easily go over it and make this kind of clear. But actually, if there's a groove there, and I'm printing these flat, you're better off just getting a sheet of overhead acetate and putting that in. So there we go. Right, let's. I'll talk a bit more about what I've learned as we get further along, because there's actually, I've learned a lot doing these things, so I'll mention it. So, Jaw21, have you seen the new Jurassic Park? Yes, I have. I did enjoy it. I thought it was quite slow at the start, and then I think it hit its thing, and there's plot armour for people, but it's really, I did enjoy it, yeah. I'm considering rewatching them all, but it's only a couple of years since I last rewatched them all. But we've been watching Camp Cretaceous Chaos Theory, and that kind of went around the last couple of movies, the Jurassic World ones, quite a lot. So, but it was a bit of a reset, but I did enjoy it. Lily says, could do stuff like that using Blender's sculpt mold and a graphic tablet. I did all of this here with Blender. I don't do it on a graphic tablet though. I use all the shortcuts on the keyboard, so I use a full keyboard, and I don't know how that would work on a graphic tablet personally. So Tig, John, Lily, I've seen some large-scale bust models done like that with cards used to build up from the transparent plastic sheet base. It works very well. I can imagine that, yeah. So Lily, we do have an SLA printer in the makerspace, but it doesn't seem very clear. You can still see the lines, and it's more like a crystal than a pane of glass. Well, that is an issue. You have to A, get the right resin, and B, you need to sand like mad. You know, you will always get the line lines. But what you can do with resin that you can't do with an FDM print as easily is basically sand it. That's the difference. You can sand and polish it. You can't do that with an like a FDM. It just, PLA doesn't sand. And it's so fine, this. We'll talk about, to make it thin enough to see through with the colours, it's really fine. So yeah. So Lily, I'm not using PLA, I'm using UV resistant filaments because it's a gauge 1 model that's potentially going outside one day. The main body will be ASA. So if you can sand it, The principle is the same. If you want something to be perfectly clear when you 3D print, you need to get rid of the artifacts of 3D printing. So if you're going to 3D print a model, and I don't know whether ASA is sandable, I think it's an ABS equivalent. ABS does sand beautifully, so you might find this works, Lily. You'd have to do a test piece. But you'd want to print it, and you need to print to get as clear as possible. Only layers. You cannot print any infill because it really does show. So you would need to just do a complete, as many layers as you need, not too many. I've been printing them at one layer to get them really thin, but as many layers as you need to get it thick enough to stay. And I'll show you my technique in a sec with this of making it work so I can get the thinner bits. And then you need to sand it, and then actually you might find then you sand it down, start with the few hundreds, and then sand it and sand it and sand it until you get to the thousands, and try something like a Tamiya polishing compound perhaps, and then hit it with that gloss varnish or another coat of the resin, and see how that works. So but the way I get around it, let me just crack one of these open. So if you were to look at this piece, and we'll talk about it again when I'm not doing a main video, it looks like it's one piece, but actually it is, it's actually got a rim on it that is probably a millimetre, 1.6, 1.2 millimetres thick. So it's got a bit more rigidity, helps you able to get it off the build plate. And then the centre is one layer thick. So I do it at 0.2. I'm working on 0.16 layer heights, but I often find that a lot of 3D printers just default the first layer to 0.2 anyway, so I'm not actually sure if it's printing at 0.16 or if it's printing at 0.2. And this is the clear resin that I had. So this is Ceratec Blue Clear, and these are my Despy like sanding pads. This is a really small clone because these were done really small to fit on. But you can see how clear that was. That's how clear you can get resin. Translucent filament though, where I've been using it, is for lighting effects. So we'll talk about that in a sec. Lily says, the sculpt mode in Blender allows you to work with a 3D model kind of like a piece of clay and mould and add geometry, smooth pull. I've tried it a bit, it's amazing. I do use a sculpt mold, but only for adding texture. I am trying to make my stuff dimensionally accurate, so I want it to fit exactly dimensions. So when I pull a vertex, I want to make sure that my model is 25.2 wide. I don't want it to be different. So because of that, I definitely make sure that I'm working in the actual vertices level of things and edges and faces. I don't ever do sculpt mode for anything because it's just too easy to deform out and blow stuff out of dimension. So if I was doing a train, I would be working in edit mode, not sculpt mode, just because of how hard surface it is. So sculpt mold in Blender is for organic shapes. So if you're doing organic shapes like trees, people, whatever, it's perfect. If you're doing something that's like hard, like a train, it's so much easier to do it in edit mode. And again, I don't know how that works on a tablet, I'm afraid, but I can imagine sculpt mold's much easier on a tablet. So this is the first diorama, and the second one's a very similar usage of ice. And this was my first ever usage of translucent. Basically, it was a cheap one off Amazon. I've since I think it was one of the main ones, but I then couldn't get it. So I then got GEE Tech, and almost all of my clear after that was GEE Tech. But you'll see if you look at the next one, I actually changed brands partway down. It changes colour. So they're not all equal. But this is what a standard translucent filament looks like out the printer. If I had printed it solid, I could have made it look clearer. If I had printed it like with more and more layers, it would have come out looking very differently. More and more walls, it would have come out looking very differently. If you up the flow so it gets squished more, it will come out looking very differently. So if you're after absolute clarity, then you're going to have to start experimenting a lot to push it, because this is what resin looks like. This is my Ceratec Blue Clear. Straight out, it looks clear. and I can keep that looking clear. And if I was to sand that, I could make that, and I've used it for canopies, and with a little bit of sanding, it can look great. You will never get that with FDM. So where do I use FDM then? If this is, I do miss modelling in this, but it was just a little bit brittle, this resin. So I've actually got a separate vat with it in at the moment. But where do I use it? Well, you saw it there. I use it for when I want to do ice or when I want to do lighting effects. So ice is brilliant with translucent because ice itself is not particularly clear once it's in an ice formation. If you think of an iceberg, it's not like an ice cube. You can't see through it. All the air in there, the impurities, they make it look far more white than anything else. But you do get the translucence that you'll get with like icicles and all of that coming through. So if you're doing an ice board, this is an ice wall that she's climbing in Siberia. If you're doing that, this is Tomb Raider, if you're going to be doing that, then this is the perfect thing. And the only other filament that I've seen that I like for ice, I haven't actually tried yet. I'm going to do an ice terrain, much like I did Coryx with lava. There will be an ice one coming at some point. This year is probably a bit more grid forgey though, so it'll be next year. And one of the things that I have for that is, I bought one roll to try it, is a white and pale blue ice effect. And it basically goes from white to pale blue. So you get a little bit of a build up. But like many of these sort of colour change, even if it is just white to ice blue, they do it in sort of sections. So when you print something like, I printed my statues in colour change stone, and the bottom is dark, then it goes to a paler, then and it's in stripes. And I'm worried that the ice will end up looking like that, which isn't that natural. You really want your ice to be greener in the middle and then whiter towards the outside. And you could do that in a number of ways. One of which I probably will think about doing next time I want to do ice is actually, you'll see I struggle here to paint the ice. This I designed in Blender. I did this myself. I think I did the ice cubes, the icicles. I think I got off somewhere and just stretched them all out and put them there. I now know how to do procedural icicles. I went away and learnt it. And then the ice wall I modelled in sculpt mode in Blender. So, you know, that's where I did that. And you can see I did concentric infill. If you do a grid, it will show through. So you can't do a grid. You have to do a concentric infill. It just makes it look better when you look through it, because you get the same sort of density all the way through. And then what I found was, this was stringing a lot, this. It really isn't great with damp, this PLA. You do need to dry it regularly. I'm hoping putting it in the AMS and the bamboos will get a better result than this open one. You can see here where I changed brands halfway through and the colour changed. Some of it is, I mean, it's paint. I painted this anyway a little bit, but some of it, the yellowier one is, yeah. It's kind of a different look, isn't it? I prefer the whiter one, which I think the GE Tech is the whiter one. So basically, I use a lot of UV resin with this over the top to get rid of the layer lines. And why would I do that? Because when I want to put the paint on, I don't want it to sit in the layer lines. And this still has a lot of layer lines. You can't see them at the moment, but the second you put a paint on like a wash, it's just going to sit in the layer lines and show them up. So for this, I went over it all with just a clear Jewelers off Amazon UV resin and used it to fill out the layer lines. So when I painted this Tamiya paint on, it's a thinned Tamiya paint, bluey green mix, it would, you know, not sit in my layer lines. Sadly, it's also very glossy, that UV resin. And what it meant was it just beaded on the surface. And you'll see I spent a lot of time painting it as it dried to stop it from drying into beads. So Lily says, yes, I don't do technical stuff with sculpt mould either. I was talking in reference to landscapes like those icicles. Yeah, I still did the icicles. I do them procedurally now with Geometry Notes, to be honest. But I still did the icicles in the other. I mean, I rarely, if ever, go into sculpt mode, I have to be honest. But there we go. Goodness, the 3D department would kill me if I used this much filament in one go on one thing. They'd make me replace the spools. Yeah, but this was at the time my job, doing, you know, big dioramas for YouTube, so it's fine. I personally think big dioramas are something that I've run out of space for in my house, so you can get just as much joy out of doing a small one. Would be where I am now. And actually I struggle now with my really big ones because they don't have a home. They're either on the floor or they're on the edge of somewhere. It's not ideal. Beading, because I can put that jewellery resin over it. I did eventually get it all out so it didn't dry like that, but I had to keep watching it as it dried. And it was obviously cold. Must be winter, unlike today, because I've got a scarf on. Look at that. Well, that'd be nice. I'm also, you can see, painting white in there because there is definitely quite a bit of white going on. I'm not quite sure why I'm flicking it, but anyway, there we go. Probably to try and come up with a frosty effect. I also, because this is ice, use quite a lot of other products on it than just the filament. But what I like about this is as it gets towards the end and you can see there's just those fewer layers, walls, it's all becoming solid. You can see it becomes more see-through. So you can definitely get it to get there. So this is my number one use for just plain, clear, translucent filament. And that is ice effects. Where else might you use it though? You could use it for windows in sci-fi buildings, dioramas where you don't actually want an interior, but you want the effect of a window. It could be really useful for that because it can come out like a frosted glass, especially if you consider perhaps not just using rectangular as the first layer pattern. You can change the patterns of your layers. So you could put it into a concentric, you can do it in zigzag. I found Hilbert, I had a manager with Keith Hilbert once, he was a lovely guy. Anyway, there's a Hilbert pattern as well on bamboo slicer. So you can, and that I thought was really interesting the last time I used it. So you can put other patterns on that will be, give you different effects as well if you're using it. If you think about the world that we live in, there are things like corrugated clear roofing. There's sort of those brick things that are like glass bricks. There's all sorts of things that are clear but aren't clear. And tarpaulins, all sorts, you know, the plastic sheeting. So there's loads of places you could find to use that kind of effect. Now, this actually, that was, I realised, these are my some of my other videos. That one that popped up there that was up for a brief second, which was lava. Let me just go back actually. So this one here, oh, wait till we get that. Will it be here in a sec? Oh, did I go back too far? The joys of... so anyway, it's lava. And this was the first time, I think we're going to get to it in a sec. This was the first time I'd ever done lava. And here we go. I did all this with clear acrylic gels. And one of the things I learned doing that was A, it takes a while to dry, B, lava looks better when lit. So I did this ice wall, totally, you could actually have made that a lot less filament. The whole back wasn't really needed and it would have looked more glowy if I'd perhaps put less on. But I want to do lava. So the other thing that I use translucent filament for is lava. There's three things I use it for. The first one's ice, the second one's lava, and this is my lava. And this was also done with clear translucent filament. Now you can see light coming through in some areas, which are like the rocks. The only trouble with doing clear translucent filament is you then have to paint out the areas you don't want to be lit. So this is what a clear translucent filament tile looks like. I learned a lot about printing them. So whilst I'm showing them off, let me just talk a little bit about the printing problems I had with it. One, we saw earlier, it had a lot of spidering on some of the versions, so I had to dry it a lot. That's fine. Two, it's incredibly brittle. I used it for the clips because obviously I want clear clips as well when clipping these so they don't show, and they break regularly. They just have no spring to them. This is not like a PLA filament, like normal PLA in the brands that I had. It was a bit of a clip once and done, this brand. Now it may be as translucent filament becomes more popular and more people use it, I've got, I can't think what brand this is. Top Zeal. This is Top Zeal, and I've used it a few times. It's okay. One thing though is that if I have a lot where the interior of, say, these clip, and I'm always worried that over time they're going to just break. But I haven't noticed it as much with the coloured ones as I have with the clear one. The clear one is definitely very, very brittle. I think by the time they've put some colour in, they're able to add in some other plasticizers and other things into it. But the coloured ones definitely have problems. Another issue I had with this was printing it. Now, my Elegoo's printed it fine. Elegoo's, no problem. They printed it, absolute dream. My presser heat crept every time I printed it. It would get halfway through a print and it would go and just stop and just dribble. It just had a heat cut out every time. It was really frustrating. So there's a part here somewhere where you just have to know your printer. I have printed this coloured stuff, no problem on my presser, but the clear stuff won't print on it. I haven't tried it with my bamboo yet, the clear one. I probably will by the time I finish doing Outbound Station, but I haven't got onto that yet. So be careful is all I can say when printing. You just check that you don't get heat creep, that your printers are fine. And it was literally the filament, because the next day it'll be printing something else, it'll be fine. The other thing I learned doing this, I'm doing it now, I put a black wash on because it's nigh on impossible to get into all of these crevices when you're painting on a really deep terrain tile. And it runs. It actually runs along the layer lines. And when you're printing translucent, if you put a wash there, it will literally run under your lava pools that you want to be lit. And so I ended up with a black bloom in one corner. You don't notice it by the end, but I'm showing it you there. You can see it's run through. It's not ideal. So be careful. Be really careful with translucent. And also, this is a reason you shouldn't use this for food or things that are gonna, like plant pots without sealing it, because it will show. And you can see there, you can also see my infill. I just did this on grid, so you can see the infill. Now, I'm painting over these with normal paints. You can see me, all of these videos, I just paint over the normal paints. And I use fluorescent paints for the lava, so that when they're not lit, they still look like lava and they're glowing. And over time, I've changed the brands of fluorescent paints as I've run out, and I've changed what I've done. And you can see it side by side. So my top tip is decide what you're going to paint it with and buy enough and mix enough to do the whole project, because otherwise, yay. I also got a bit bored and it took so long that when I came to paint the I call them waterfalls, the lava falls at the end, I just did them a lot more simply. And it does show is different. You have to put something across the gap between them. Lighting for all of these things, I've standardized on LED 5 volt where possible. I will be using up my 12 volts that I've already bought, but 5 volt LEDs on a USB strip is just so much easier. But the glue I don't trust, which is why I'm hot gluing them in place. So Lily says, any advice on printing headlight covers with clear filament? I thought maybe I could use the print files to my advantage, as they would sort of replicate the reflectors in certain types of covers. Yeah, definitely. I would you want them to be thin and, you know, do everything I said, up your flow, don't have any infill, make it 100% print, all of those sorts of things. And then mould in the lines that you want almost. Yeah, it's going to be just a bit of experimentation really. And if you can get yourself anything that will be sandable as a print filament, then that'd be better. Hi Raverson, good to have you. And Lily's right, 5V also lends itself well to applications with microcontrollers. I just find it very easy to have USB hubs and things like this. But realistically, if you're doing anything with microcontrollers, they're always 5V. But I always power them separately anyway. So this is me trying to get this sorted. Now, over my experimentation with lighting translucent filament, I came to a number of conclusions about it. One, this is actually Lola Sayu, for those of you who are Star Wars geeks, the Citadel episodes from Clone Wars. You can get blue lava at night. The sulfur burns off with a blue flame, and on Earth you can actually get blue lava effects. It's a photography thing, but you know, if you were to go there, it wouldn't look as blue, I think, by eye, but it is a blue flame from the sulfur igniting. So anyway, the thing that I learned, I spent a lot of time painting these and trying just to get them to look yellow. Even just getting that yellow, which is fluorescent yellow, into all the gaps on this heavily textured was really difficult. If I was doing lava again, and I will be doing lava again, because I want to do some like lava falls still for the back, I would probably, if I'm honest, print them in yellow at the very least, translucent yellow. Bamboo don't have a translucent yellow, but they do have a translucent orange. So I would look to see whether I could print them in a translucent orange. Now for this, I was doing a very fast flowing lava which had hints of yellow and brown and other colours in it. But you can see when you light it, it all gets a lot brighter. So you could certainly put the yellow over it afterwards. And I find painting lava is actually quite hard. Sometimes it looks really good, sometimes it just looks really blotchy. But starting with a yellow would get rid of at least one of those paint coats that has to go on, and would mean that any light that shines through or any cracks that you see just look like they're hot as opposed to unpainted. Lily, let me get out my Star Trek phase and start a nerd war. I was a Trekkie as a youngster, but with the new stuff coming out, I've been far more into Star Wars since the Clone Wars, which I only watched over lockdown. But yeah, since the Clone Wars, I've been more of a warsy. I've got to say though, I did love this lava campaign that I did, which is why I want to go back and do ice. This was so much fun to paint and do and enjoy. And although it was 3D printing, a lot of it, it was a lot of texture on it, much like with ice. And I do really love ice. So there will be an ice Kickstarter coming, but it will be maybe the start of next year. I don't know. We'll have to see. And it'll be a snow and ice, obviously, not just ice. So there we go. I did these four as test prints. The actual main lava cavern that goes at the bottom of Scut City and was my Corix campaign was just normal orange. But all of these were based on, this is Sullust from Battlefront 2. But Sullust is another Star Wars one. That's an Earth-based one, as I said, and then the other one was Lola Sayu, and then a normal orange lava. So I did love having 4 different lava colours. It was really cool. You can get some great effects. And the other thing that I learned when lighting it, so another top tip, is you can buy cellophane for wrapping presents, or you can buy expensive lighting gels. And they're coloured, and if you put that between plain white LEDs and like your tile, you will actually then end up with coloured light, and it's far cheaper than trying to buy RGB NeoPixel LEDs. Now for my lighting on the lava, I wanted a flicker because, you know, lava's like moving. So I wanted that feeling of movement. So these ones are the whites. And you can see here, it looks really anemic. And I keep trying, and no matter what you do, no matter how much paint you get on, you then just end up blocking the light. You could use more translucent paint, I guess. But then lava itself isn't clear. It's a sort of viscous molten rock, but it's not clear like molten glass. So the key to this then, for me, after a bit of experimenting, was to put some cellophane in there. Norm, do a diorama with lava melting an ice mall. Twice the fun. Oh yeah. I actually think the next thing I'm going to do when it's the lava could as easily be painted to water. I think almost the texture for the lava that I'm going to be doing, which is going to be gushing down, will be almost water-like in its thing. And I think this, I haven't done it yet, but I do think using this translucent filament would be great for just adding a little bit of extra to your water. So hear me out on this one. John had a teal translucent filament he showed on a Second Dynasties stream on Friday, and I didn't buy it because I wasn't sure what I would use it for and I bought red and orange and blue from Bamboo to test, but they also have a purple and a teal, and I was really just being a bit of a, when I know what I want it for, I'll buy it, because I buy enough from Bamboo constantly up in grey that I can add another one, and they're like 20 odd quid, so they're not cheap as things go. And actually, it's another thing, translucent filament is actually more expensive. The coloured translucent, slightly less so. I looked at that and I thought that would be really great for water gushing out from the start of a water pipe, and then you could add the white froth later on to make it look more, you know, just white, I guess, further away from that stream. So when things come out of pipe in pressure, they're often quite green towards the start and then going out afterwards. So here we go. You can see the fluorescent, I'm showing you with UV lights here. You can see how much the fluorescence really glows. I hate yellow fluorescence because it always glows green, never really glows yellow. But this is what they look like. I think they have an interesting effect. I think you could use this in a number of things on alien worlds or on Earth. I mean, 2 of these are Earth-based, 2 are alien-based. So there's definitely places you could use these. I think also for water, translucent filament would be a really interesting effect for water as well. That is my favourite one. I think that one came out really well. That is actually one of my favourites that I did. I think it's really cool. So there we go. Right. So there's a couple more lava ones coming because that's mostly what I've used translucent for recently. But I also wanted to talk, and there isn't really a video on this yet, so I will talk as well about this, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's just see what they say in chat. Lily, add cotton as the resulting steam. Oh, that would be interesting. I always struggle getting cotton wool. I actually use polyfiber quilting. I often struggle to get it to look realistic. So yeah, that'd be cool. Lily, you could also recycle certain PET bottles of specific colours for getting colours that would be too expensive or not available. Mostly those Mountain Dew bottles and such. Yeah, I haven't got around to recycling my own filament yet. I just want it to work straight out the roll. I just want to be able to print, because I just print so much and the printers are constantly going that I just haven't got time to experiment. And that, I think, is a bit of an experiment. So there we go. But yeah, I've seen people do it all the time. It looks really interesting. Hi Russ, good to have you. Great to see you here. So Shatterpoint is something that I love the models of. I don't actually pay it much. I played it for a year or so, And then just haven't really played it a lot since. But then I haven't played Legion since they changed the rules a year and a bit ago. And every time they do a Legion sort of tournament in my local shop, I think I was 18th out of 18th last time. And then the last one I couldn't make. And then the next one, which is coming up at the end of August, I can't make. So, yeah. So you can see here, these are the actual tiles that I then did for Corix, the Lava Moon. So this is like a whole Kickstarter's worth of printing coming up. So Lily says, I saw a YouTuber do this with the Green Mountain Dew bottle and the colour was really pretty. I think so. My problem is it's just not reliable, and I need to show off my 3D prints to look really, really good because they're a selling point for the Kickstarters I'm doing. So I just haven't got the bandwidth to spend testing it out, I think is probably where my head is at with it. And also I don't drink fizzy drinks, so I'd have to go and get them from somewhere. I guess you can get like bottles somewhere, but yeah. So there we go. Right, the last thing I wanted to talk about whilst this is playing was these. Now this is my third use. If you saw my last Kickstarter, you'll have seen I did red and energy barriers, which I did mean to get some down and totally forgot. I remembered when I wasn't here and forgot by the time I got here. But I've been using them as, this is a hanger door. Admittedly, it's a very small hanger door, and I have options to have bigger ones. But energy barriers, I think they're great, these translucent ones for energy barriers. But a walkway, so I did an energy walkway, and it is 2mm thick, and it does not look like energy barriers that are clear and translucent and free. I think you need, to get a really clear print, you almost would need to do it in multi-filament and just do a couple of layers of the blue and maybe a wall or two of the blue, and then do the rest in clear translucent. So that's something I want to experiment with at a future point, but which I haven't experimented with yet. And the idea for that is that it's probably better to have that clearness in there, clarity. Even at 2mm, if you shine a light through it, it will shine through and it will look clear. You can see the light through it. So if you're lighting things, it's less of an issue. But if you want them just on the table to look like an energy barrier or an energy field or an energy walkway, it's not, it's just not. So, okay. Where did we got to? Sorry if I'm being a know-it-all, says Lily, by the way. I think all he did was add the flow rate. Yeah, no, cool. No, I think it's a really good technique if you want to experiment. But the YouTuber one that I saw had built himself a machine to cut the bottle, a machine to wrap that, and a machine to then curl it and put it in and melt it to create the filament. Now it just looks like a lot of extra work, and I'm lazy. If I'm going to be spending the extra time, I need to be doing it on stuff that is already in my backlog. So yeah, I have a lot in my backlog at the moment. So yeah, no, but don't worry, I love people chatting. It really, really, really makes it easier to get through a live stream. If there's nobody talking, I'm like, what should we talk about? What are they interested in? Are they interested? But if people talk, it's like, great. And yeah, you do need to up the flow rate generally with translucent anyway, to push the gaps out. Where the air is where you don't get the translucent. And Norm's right, we value the input. Russ, translucent filament. I see a lot of applications with LEDs. I think that is the main thing that I use it for. I think it looks great for the ice, but everything else you see here is relying on it for lighting through. Here, I could have just painted a white base and painted these. but they look so good lit. I cannot tell you how miles better lava looks lit than unlit. You know, it looks amazingly better. And if you want to know why I'm painting them red and white, it's to get rid of the translucent look, and this is the base colour. Now these are just normal acrylic paints. When you're lighting something, because this is quite thin, you will easily get the, you know, the light to shine through a thin layer of paint. If you're gobbing it on 3 inches thick and it's black, obviously it's not going to shine through, and that's something you can take advantage of. Here, I want it to shine through on the lava areas, so I'm painting those with clearer, brighter colours, and then I'm using a dark grey as the edging to get rid of the sort of bleed on the edges. And that, I think, is really important, that you get this kind of blocking effect to get the light to work. So Lily, the one you saw is obviously a bit of a step up, because Lily said the one I saw did all those tasks in one. Yeah, it's a bit of a step up. I think once one person's put something on YouTube, you see loads of people then coming up and improving it, which is really helpful for people coming afterwards. You know, if you don't jump in straight away, you see what comes out as a good technique, then it can be really helpful, especially if they then put out 3D print files of the machine. So yeah. Lily, is it bad that the lava didn't now looked a bit like a lasagna? Only if you haven't eaten. I'm not hungry either. I wouldn't worry about it. But yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking tomato soup sometimes when I was trying to paint this. It certainly looks like you can eat it sometimes. I would have said it, but at the time, you have to bear in mind with lava. Lava isn't like most things. Most things are sort of darker towards the bottom. So if you look at water and you look at waves and you have like ripples, they're generally darker towards the bottom, lighter at the top, because light's shining through them. And the top's closer to it's got less volume there, so light shines through it, and so therefore it looks brighter. Lava is heated, so it's actually brighter in the lowest dips. So you have to paint your yellow first and then dry brush everything else on top. And you can see I'm not actually dry brushing because I want this to be patchy and I don't want it all to be bright yellow in all the lowest dips. But you definitely have to want to dry brush, and this is dry brushing again now, you can see, because I'm using that to take it down. You need to make sure the lowest areas are yellow and the highest areas are the dark brown. Yeah, Lily says, rock but liquid, what's not to like? Well, I actually think it's really unrealistic when you see anybody in these lava chambers or them fighting on lava. Hello, wouldn't you be crisp? You just be a crisp. You're literally standing on a piece of metal that's standing on lava, so it's probably really hot, and you're 2 inches away from lava. Surely your feet are burning by now, if not the whole of you. And what are you breathing? Because the air must be noxious. So, yeah. Energy barriers is where I'd kind of got to on talking before I distracted myself off it again. So energy barriers, I think, have a really good idea, sort of things I want to test. I want to try putting LEDs in the end of them so that they are slightly lit. At the moment, I've not created anything though where LEDs really fit. I think it would need to be a bespoke model, and that's something that I really need to work on. But one of my plans for the future, still to be worked on, is to do a whole section of ones on lights, like signs, lit signs, everything like that. So I'm planning to spend a bit of time creating signs that are multicolour, and obviously clear signs, white signs, whatever. So I do plan to spend quite a lot of time in future looking at some of these things as experimenting, because I do love translucent filament. One other area that I did use it for was, for those of you that remember my CAD campaign, I did blue LED columns, and this time I learnt from the lesson and I printed them in blue, and then I used blue lights, because even when you've printed the blue filament and it's a couple of millimeters thick, if you put a white LED in there, it will read as just white on your camera, and it will read as, probably won't read as white when you look at it in real life, but your eyes compensate differently to a camera, and the camera will read it as white almost, just coming through, white light. So realistically, if you're going to use coloured like lava, either you need to put a column of cellophane down like blue, which is a more intense like colouring of it somehow, or you need to use coloured LEDs. This is, as I said, got RGBs, and it was really useful to change the colours and play with them and fiddle with them. And there's things like fire and candlelight as settings on the app that I used for this particular one. So you're able to, you're able to get some movement into it as well, which would also be great for water. If you wanted to show gushing water of some sort, then it could also work really well there to have a bit of lighting on it as well, I think. So, Kentucky Fried Anakin, says Lily. Oh yes, poor little, I mean, I don't like Anakin, so I don't say poor Lily. Poor Anakin, I mean, bless him, he brought it on himself, didn't he? Ravenson, I was forging a nail last week, my first try of forging something, and I burnt my finger. Oh, that sounds painful. Wow. What was it made from? What metal? Sorry. And did you do like lost wax, or did you do a sand casting, or did you use a 3D print to create a divot? I'm really intrigued now. So wow, very impressive. I've always thought people next level to go to do something like forging. Wow. And yeah, Lily, I hope his finger's still attached, but it's burnt. Sounds like it's still there. It is better now, says Ravenson. It was a painful experience when it happened. Yeah. So yeah. So Lily's like, important lesson learned, you're not magically impervious to heat, and always good to know who could have been a hidden talent. And no, Kathy, poor Lily is accurate too. Okay. Forging nails, Tamsin. Why would anybody want to do that when genuine nails are so cheap and really available? I'm guessing it was an easy shape, like a golf tee sort of shape, so easy to get out. But yeah, I was surprised that nails were your first thing. But yeah, but Ravenson, I get it. It's something to play with. And then Lily guessed the challenge, peer pressure, blatant disregard for your own fingers. And then Ravenson, and I'm sure I don't want to stand too close to lava. The heat of a forge is 1/2 metre distance is not comfortable. I can only stand for a short moment. Wow, a real forge rather than just like, heating it up with a heat gun. That's very impressive. Yeah, and Russ says you would feel the intense heat of lava at 200 or 300 yards away. That's my view. But maybe they magically used the force. That was it. The force kept them cool somehow. Yeah. I was doing a play on words, the 2 different meanings of forging. Ah. Cool, Tamsin. Wow. Right, sorry, just trying to work out why. Okay, so Ravenson says it was a gas-powered forge. Use the forge, Luke. I like it. The mere smoke from a volcano can incinerate you. Ow. Norm, you have volcanoes in America still, do you? Any live ones other than Hawaii? I'm not sure that you do on the mainland, but you did have Mount St. Helens. So, yeah, cool. Ravenson, I was forging the nail because I had the opportunity to do it. Why not trying some traditional techniques? Why not? You know, it's one of those things. It's actually an easy shape as well. I thought a lot of original nails weren't forged so much as cut from wire and then they bashed the ends. So it's interesting to see that. What sort of colour would you recommend, asked Lily, for painting SLA and keeping it still translucent, by the way? So painting for translucent, it depends what you want. If you're lighting, I mean, I just painted it, as I said, with normal acrylics. But for painting things that I want to look clear, like a clear water, I use Tamiya, their clear colours. They have blue, green, red, yellow, orange, I think that's it. They have a smoke as well, and obviously clear. And I use that and I mix up the colour I want. And I find it's a really good paint because it dries to a high gloss. It's really translucent. You can put it on quite thickly and it doesn't dry badly. I mean, we obviously can't just pour it in or anything. The other way I did it, and actually it was Tamiya that you saw I painted on the ice wall, is to thin it slightly and use it as a glaze. But you just have to be careful that A, it doesn't settle in the layer lines. So I would coat it with a resin first and then it just beaded. But thicker Tamiya that's not been thinned is quite intense. You know, it would do well for and this is where I've used it in the past, say the rear red light of a vehicle. If you put chrome underneath and put the Tamiya red over the top, it looks translucent, it looks clear, it's really good. But if you were to put a light behind that, I would still use a red light, just because I think they're too powerful, the LEDs, they just create too much of a spot. Okay, but yeah, Tamiya clears are what I use if I want to paint translucent stuff. If you want it to be clear, I'd use Tamiya clear. Raveson Express, and I tried to take a photo and share it on Discord. Excellent, that'd be really cool. Definitely paint. Norm, the dormant one in Yellowstone, if it ever erupts, will take out a couple of states. Ouch. Let's hope it doesn't erupt then. It's for indicator lights, one in orange yellowish and the other one in red. I would definitely use Tamiya clear then. I do find it really good. There we go. Wow. I did this. This was the inspiration for Sullust there. You can see it. And this is the lava factory. This is the inspiration photos that I had for the lava factory. This is from Battlefront 2. Obviously, I took loads and loads of photos and I'm always in them. You play as Lando. I'm not a huge Lando fan. I guess he's grown on me. But anyway, so it's a very yellow. This was the inspiration then, and then you can see outside it's a very red type of volcanic lava. I love the Tamiya clear colour, says Russ. Yeah, I mean, I love Tamiya paints. They're not great for hand painting, minis or anything. They're the wrong texture for it almost. You see the brush marks too quickly. But for the users that I use them for, they are just the best. Getty woozy. Yeah. Right, so these are actually white. If you think they look translucent, they're actually white. So I, for this, did almost the same techniques. I've just left it on the end here because I was trying to find, I wasn't sure how long I'd talk about translucent. I wanted modelling to go off in the background while I was doing it. So here we go, outside on my bins, spray painting again. Do a lot of that. I've got to stick stickers on our bins now, so I can't paint it up. By woozy, does that mean the jolting through the factory? Because I would spell that W-O-O-Z. Okay. Right, so energy field. So I wanted to, I'm just going to click off this now and come back to me, because this is actually just another lava video. I wanted to show you these. So get them in the right order. Yeah, okay. So this is about 2 or 3 layers of translucent filament. You can't see through it. If I put a hand behind it, it doesn't help that the light's on the front. If I have the light behind it, let's get the iPhone out. If I put a light behind it, you can see the iPhone light is white and it looks white. But if you put the light further away, it isn't so bad. And this is printed and you can see through it. It is translucent, but it doesn't show a lot. I halved it. Okay, so this is half. White light, even more of a problem, even more translucent. You'd have to hold this a long way away. But you can see it's starting to get quite there. And then this is 1 layer thick. So this is literally 1 layer on the back. Whoa, it's like it does nothing to block the light. And actually, she says, let's just turn the light off. No, I didn't want to go into it. I wanted to turn my light off. Light off, thank you. You know, back to this second one. If I do, you can just start to see my hand coming through. Come to this one and you can see my hand coming through. It's almost quite clear. So I think this is the look I'm going to go for. It's even thinner. And it's probably the one I'm going to put up. I've spent quite a lot of time working out how to get it to print. And one of the issues is, printing something this thin it's 1 layer thick. The biggest issue is getting it off your build plate because it's so thin. You have to print it flat down, so you need to have a smooth bed up, and it helps with the hexes on it to keep it more rigid, but I do some with and some without. I can have it without. And it's really thin, it's quite flexible. You can see through it, you can see my hand through it all the way, so it's getting there. I actually use, so then to get it so it's easier to get up, there's a lip around the outside, which is actually hidden, and that's about, as I think I said earlier, 1.6 mil or something. So it just slides in, and once it's in place, you get this really quite decent, hard to show on whatever, energy effect. And I think it's coming out quite well. I'm quite pleased with it. I've got it for windows. I had them printed to show you, but I didn't make the slit the right size at the top, so I couldn't actually get the window insert into the window. So that was embarrassing. Anyway, and the idea is that on a space station you might have an energy field rather than having, certainly on hangar bay doors. The other thing though is, you know, if you've got a print like this, a design like this, it becomes very, very simple for you to just put a sheet of acetate in. If you don't want it to be a 3D print, if you want to do something on that, you can just add a sheet of acetate in. Okay, so Russ is back with us. Lily, I actually joined the Discord server just now. Anyone interested in what I'm making? Yeah, put it on over there. There's quite a few sections for you to show stuff off on. Please put it on. We're always interested to see what people are up to. And I'd love more people to post what they're doing on there. It's been really fascinating watching Tim, who is probably up a Welsh mountain as we speak, or coming back from one, building a little miniature railway, miniature being like this big. And he went up Mount Tanzania, Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. And he went up that and took a model railway with him to the top of the mountain. It's like just really fascinating. He took so many photos of it. And so he's been posting that up there, but it's always good to see what people are actually doing. So please, yes, do post. Polite, BRW to me is great, but I still prefer solvent-based glass paint. There are water-based glass paints, but they tend to be translucent, not transparent. Yeah, I just think Tamiya is easier to find. I haven't used glass paints in a while, but I guess exactly what you're saying. Exactly what you're saying. The glass paints are made for glass. So, but I mean, Tamiya is fairly clear, I feel. So yeah, Russ says, oh yeah, big difference with light. I wondered what BRW, I just thought I wasn't hip and down with the boys there. Polite, and I was trying to think, be right with, but glad it was BTW, so it's by the way. So there we are. Yeah, so timber, yeah, you can see my hand through it. It's really good, but it's only one layer thick. So it's actually surprisingly robust. And the blue, on the one that's entirely just without any hexes on, it's much easier to see the pattern on it because the hexes don't break it up. But actually it's an energy field, and so I don't feel that bad about it. So Lily's put up an open source model of a light rail car in Scale 1. Brilliant. Put that up, that'd be really, really cool. I look at everything on my server, Lily, so you don't need to ping me. Don't worry about it, I'll just see it. But yeah, I wouldn't go around pinging people on other people's servers. Generally, if people want to read it, they'll read it. If people don't, yeah. I mean, I rarely even ping my own announcements. It's a very ping-free server, basically. So, yeah. So, Tim tuppered a model train. He did definitely put a model train in a Tupperware box and take it up a mountain. In fact, he didn't just take it up the mountain. He took it on safari with him. He took it to the beach. Literally, he even took it to the shower, just outside. Every single place that Tim went in Africa, he got the train out and ran it. Literally almost every single place. And by the time he got to the top of the mountain, I think only one of them was still running. He had to fix the other two. But yeah, it's really cool. He took it to the Severn Valley Railway this weekend. So if you went, well, last weekend. So there we go. And Rosa says he can now put it into a deep freezer. He tested it in the deep freezer because he knew it was going to be icy at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So he actually did put it in the freezer to test it. It still ran. It's 009. Lily asked, was it T-gauge or something? No, it's 009. That's what Tim models. So he's got 3 trains he took there. One of which is the Thing, and it's got stormtroopers in it, which was cool. Really cool. Oh, and this is one of my favourite t-shirts. Is it back to front? No. Sometimes these, it's that side. Maybe these were the droids we were looking for. Yeah. He had a fresh train layout for every occasion. Yeah. He could do that, couldn't he? Have loads of different boxes. He likes, he has a lot of layouts anyway. He keeps Port de Norwich in a wardrobe. There we go. It doesn't get dusty, I guess. I don't know how he gets his clothes in. If he gets his clothes in. So yeah. So that's really translucent filament. Everything that I know about it so far. I'm going to carry on experimenting with it. I think where it comes into its own is with lighting effects. But one of the problems is getting the lighting to transmit. And the other problem is your infill. If you just go with a standard infill, crosses or whatever, you'll see that really clearly through if it's lit. So what you have to do is ensure that whatever infill you use is okay. If you're doing it thin, all of these ones that I printed, the energy fields, are solids. There's no infill layers because they're all so thin. They're all under 1 millimetre. I think one's a 1, one's a 0.6, and one's a 0.2, but I think it prints at the 0.16 layer height. So, you know, I tried it at the 3 different ones, and yeah, it's cool. I think it's a really great effect. But if you think more about where you can use translucent filament, if you were to buy a sort of yucky sort of, you can't really buy many colours, but if you were to get like slime, some kind of weird radioactive slime. You could definitely do a really good translucent effect starting with a yellow for that, or a green perhaps. So there's loads of different things that you can create if you start thinking about where can I do it and where can I use it. If you don't want to see in through a window, it can look like a frosted window. So there's so many use cases for it that I think it's going to be really, really good. So back in chat, Lily says, unfortunately I gave myself railway megalomania since I bought a toy train range that I used to have as a child. That happens to be gauge 1 compatible and surprisingly detailed models. Well, gauge 1 I think so. The detail that you can get on a N and HO now is outstanding. But Lily says, can't do anything under scale 1 even if it's G scale. I used to model HO and I think it's S scale, probably my favourite. It's 1 to 64, but I do like O gauge size 1 to 48. I feel you can get a lot of detail on, but I've only really modelled HO. John, Tim put some photos of the mini layout of the Severn Valley Railway in the Adventure Channel. Yes, he did. Yeah, along with Port de Norwich, and maybe you put those up, John, actually thinking about it. So there we go. So, right, so that was translucent filament. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I was going to tell you about it. I do think there's a lack of colours, and the way around that is twofold. One, printing a close colour. Like if you want to do a sort of, as I just said, a yucky yellow, like radioactive type coolant fluid, yuck, sewer, whatever, then print either green or yellow and spray a translucent or paint a translucent similar colour over the top so that you're just using that as part of it. Or two, print in the clear colour so you don't have to buy as many colours and then just paint that. If you want to get more depth to the colour so it looks thicker, it would be better to print in a coloured print. And I think some of the colours can be cheaper than translucents. So yeah, that's really cool. I think that's it though. I think the next thing, the next stage with it is, I've done it with lighting effects to light it. I've done it for columns, lava, but the next stage after that is to look at it for actual signs and buildings and things like that. So that's why I'm going on translucent. Let's have a look back in chat. Lily, the thing is, holding a G-scale engine in your hands and having stuff like openable smoke doors and feeling the real heft of it is addictive. Yeah, it is. It really is. And I've actually started modelling an engine that's already commercially available, the Class 99 6001 from Germany. And right after I started modelling, I found a discarded shell's shop. That's good. So Russ said, nice Lily, and then said, I have a few G gauge, but they're all shelf queens right now. It's hard to find the space for it, is the trouble I have. I don't know, Lily, how much space you have, but I was tempted by 009 just because you can get a lot more in there. I mean, Tim took his 009 layout up a mountain in Africa. That shows you what you can get in. Whereas G, it's like you model the loco and that's it. Whereas I've always preferred modelling scenery. So it's great, but you can't get as much scenery in. So it's always a balance, isn't it? Between having something that's really detailed, you can see the detail. Like N would be the logical one for scenery because you can get much more in. But then if you do N scale, you can't see as much of the scenery. It's not as detailed. So yeah, it is difficult. So Lily says, bought it to use as a reference and to repair it and put on a DIY chassis afterwards. Good plan. And when I just put it in the living room once in a while, weave in and out of the furniture valleys. Yep, that's cool. I think we've all started there. I certainly remember my childhoods, I guess a lot of people do, with the train out, my dad's old Hornby 00 going round the dining room, I think it was, on the carpet. And Linda Lee said, next flat I move into will explicitly be furnished to allow for a permanent installation and maybe a ramp onto a shelf layout. You'll learn a lot doing ramps because I had mine, and even a 3% grade doesn't get you very far. It takes a lot to get up. There's actually ramps are just loco struggle to get up them, is what I'm trying to say. And it's a whole new learning curve for you. Joy to come, perhaps. Right, so we have got 40 minutes left. Ooh, interesting. So, I had thought that for the I came up with a really good idea what I would do if I finished this early. What was it, Kathy? Oh, it's too hot. I need my house to cool down a bit. It's getting hotter every single day, I think. Right. And Lily says, oh, the fun is there are actual railways in G-scale. You could get an engine to push the train up the hill. Yeah. Tamsin says, doesn't time fly? I know. I just talk about lava and ice for ages. So I am thinking, right. What was it? Oh, I had a really good, I know what it was. So recently, this is like a whole hole that I fell into. Recently, I watched one YouTube video and I'd followed a few people and they did a dripping moss wall. And I'd actually read a fan fiction a while ago because I love my fan fiction. And the guy was on a spaceship and he had an aquaponics setup. Now, for those of you who don't know what aquaponics are, they are fish in the bottom and then there are plants on top. And it's a ecosystem setup. Now, I did a biology degree. I love ecosystems. I love just the concept of a stuff in balance. So I was like, I saw this YouTube video and I'm and ahhing and I keep popping into my local Maidenhead Aquatics when we were in Melbix and looking at the aquarium, but it's too big for my house. I have dioramas everywhere and I don't necessarily want fish tanks, but the dripping moss wall and the aquaponics and then the fish underneath, I've been looking at things. It's a whole rabbit hole I went down. There is a modelling coming into this, so just bear with the story for a second. So I looked at it and it's really common that people now do planted tanks, which is like aquaponics, but I don't want to eat the fish and I don't want to eat the fruit or veg or plants that you grow in the top. So actually, it's like I looked at aquaponics setups, but it's not actually what I want. But I love the pictures of tanks with like plants on top. And then planted tanks were a thing and they create these whole planted tanks with like landscapes. Some of them are amazing. If you were to type aquascape into like Google, other search engines do exist, then you'd find loads of pictures that look almost like dioramas, but they're in an aquarium. And then I saw one where somebody had 3D printed, they got some 3D printed crab homes, huts, holes, which were like modular, like almost like a research lab that you might have. Really exciting. I thought they looked really good. And he had it on black lava rock. And at this point, I'm like, I haven't got room. But look at it. I haven't got room. But underwater diorama. So now I'm thinking, I ended up watching an awful lot of channels like MD Fish Tanks and Green Aqua, or Green Aqua as they say in Hungary, thinking about it and thinking, Kathy, you can't afford another diversion, you can't afford to start another project. So what did I do? Well, I went to the local garden centre and I bought myself some slate, black slate, because I had to get some slate for the back garden anyway. And I noticed they did black slate. And I'm building little slate installations to go into a set of IKEA vases I've got. I don't want to pay the money that an aquarium is. I wanted it to be round, and I can probably put shrimp in, little shrimp about this big, Neocaridina, and they come in like bright red, bright yellow, bright blue, dark blue actually, sort of blue. And they look quite alien. You can put some snails in, and there's some really interesting looking snails out there, smallish ones. So I could put that in one of the biggest ones I've got, and I could get some floating plants. So I'm at the moment thinking of doing 6 in, because I've got 6 vases. They're in 2 sets from IKEA, cylinder vases. 6 underwater dioramas using slate as the rock and planting them up with real plants. So is it a diorama if it's real plants? I don't know. So the first one I've thought about, actually I've got 2 or 3 roughly on the go in the thought processes. And I've been gluing like slate on top of each other. I cannot get my glue to go off quickly. It's very old glue, so that is a problem. And I don't know if it's the heat. I don't know if it's I thought super glue would set quicker, but I don't know, it's quite humid. So you'd think it would glue more quickly in the humidity because there's moisture in the air. I ended up spraying it with water to get it to set. And the reason, I used a lot of spray activator on the first one, but it feels very wrong to use a chemical like spray activator and something that you may eventually want to put fish in or something. So anyway, I decided, so I've been gluing it, and I glue about 3 chunks of slate before it gets unwieldy and it hasn't gone off. So I've been looking at doing this. So the answer is, the first one is going to have one of those bubblers, which needs me to drill a hole in the bottom of the vase so I can get the wire in so it doesn't show down the outside. And I'm going to have to learn to 3D print some minis, because I am not putting resin in there because resin is poisonous. And if I want to put some shrimp in at some point in one of the systems, I don't want resin anywhere near it. And I only ever used resin for minis. So it opens up that I need to learn 3 or 4 things. 1, gluing rocks. 2, how to 3D print miniature aqua scuba clones. Then I'm going to put them on fishing line and have them. It's a tallish vase, you know, maybe that. There's one that big and one that big. And then this tall, maybe that tall. The one's taller than the other. And then have them sort of bubbling up and have them swimming down. And overall, and then I want to put plants at the top because I've got a lot of plants that I've been craving having like some greenery in my house. Obviously I haven't got any pets because they'd eat everything. So the idea is a few more plants and stuff in the kitchen. So I've got a grow light. I've got on the Amazon Prime Day, and I've got 6 vases, and I'm going to grow some plants in the top and put some dioramas in them as well. That's the idea. And people seem to think that PLA is fish safe, so it should be all right. Okay. Kathy's overheating. And you know, I don't mind the heat. This is going to sound really funny. I really don't mind the heat, but I just had it. I'm just ready for my holiday now, I think. Lily who says, get the iceberg resin. Yeah, definitely. Digger says, you've got loads of cool stuff at your house. Loads of cool stuff and not a lot of space for new cool stuff. That's my worry. Tamsin, I guess the idea of fish and plants, in aquaponics takes inspiration from the practice of keeping fish in rice paddies in some parts of Asia. It is actually a thing that you see it in agricultural setups. It's very much an ecosystem sustainable thing. Fish poop feeds the plants. The plants clean the water and it goes back round into the fish. So it's a very low tech, you do need a pump, but sustainable system. And I know that people do it outdoors on a much larger scale. The ones indoors are like, I mean, the fish tanks are really small. I don't think they should have as many fish in as they have, not the types of fish that they have. And then there's like 5 or 6 plants on top. Well, 5 or 6 plants isn't really very much. If you're trying to grow like veg, people use them for herbs, but I don't really use a lot of fresh herbs in my cooking, so there we go. But yeah, I suspect Tamsin, it was something like that triggered it. The thing that I always loved the idea of when I was at uni, and I briefly thought of as a career, was tropical sustainable agriculture. And I love the idea of tropical sustainable agriculture. It's very different to agriculture in the West, really, where it's all commercialised. It's all about small holdings and, your pond with fish in it, ducks on the pond, floating fern that the ducks eat, sugarcane because it's heavy cropping, fed to the pigs. It's a really different type of thing, and I always found that really fascinating. So Russ says, I had an aquarium once. Cat loved to play in it too much. Go figure. Yeah, I can imagine. Lily says, sent the 6001 on Discord. I don't know what 6001 is, but I will find out after the stream, because I'm not going to come off stream to go look. So I look forward to seeing what that is. You can get some RC fish. Can you? Oh, probably couldn't kill those. Yeah, but okay, that's interesting. I mean, RC fish. Right, I'm thinking there. So Russ says, do you mean the glue won't dry? Well, it won't set. It's super glue. So it's a chemical reaction rather than drying, but I always thought it was moisture in the air that set it off. I sprayed it with water and it set up quite quickly then. So I'm guessing it is moisture that sets it. Lily says, I guess it is only cornstarch PLA. I don't think it's just cornstarch though, because I think they have additives in for colour and plasticizers. So it could theoretically be quite dangerous. They say Petga is better, and you can buy some that are more safe than others. They're advertised as that, but I think there's stuff other than the polylinoleic acid or whatever it is. So Lily says, not enough space in the house, take over the garden, like with the garden railway. I actually don't do railways anymore, and I've never wanted a garden railway. And this is going to sound really funny, but it just rains normally. This is the first year where it hasn't rained for like 3 months in the UK. But some winters it rains like every day. And my garden's really beautiful and I love the aesthetic of it. But I've been to people's garden railways and they're really beautiful too. So don't get me wrong, it's not that. But you need a shed to put it in, and then you've got to run it somewhere. And I'm just like, it's not something I've ever wanted. I've visited a few over time, around places, and they're always fun to visit, but I'm happy just to visit them. I don't need one in my own garden. So people always say to me, if you've run out of storage, get a shed in the garden. I'm like, but I love my garden, it's beautiful, and I haven't got a square inch to put a shed in. It's all, there's a lot of weeds, but it's all planted. So yeah, anyway, so I think garden railways are great ideas for people who want to go there, but it just rains too much normally. Next week's supposed to rain every day. I'm really excited for it. So the engine is nicknamed Ballerina, by the way, which is too cute if you ask me. I'm going to keep it for the first one I make. You should always keep your first one. Then you can see how you've progressed. Rona said, some years ago someone built an RC shark. Technically it is an RC submarine with a waggly tail. That's interesting because I can imagine that'd be quite effective if you put it in your local swimming pool, shark, and made the dun 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 noises. So Rameson Express says, garden railway. I was working for LGB for some years in the department for building injection mouldings. Oh, that would be fascinating. Russ says it rains almost every day for 9 months here in the Pacific Northwest US. Normally it rains every day. I mean, it doesn't rain every day. It normally rains a lot in England. If you were to look at a picture of England today, compared to this time last year it would have been green. This time this year it is brown, because literally it's hardly rained more than about 15 mil in about 4 months. Yeah. But it depends. Oh, it's just weird. I don't understand the weather at the moment. Apparently there's a heat dome over Europe. So Lily, every day, fair enough, I guess. I do insist that garden railways can actually be really aesthetic and fit right into the existing landscape. People call them tasteless and kitschy, but I disagree. I disagree with people who call them tasteless and kitschy too. I've been to quite a few, and some of them are really beautiful, and they have stunning arches. It's just, I felt like railways were already in almost every room of my house, and I drew the line at the garden too, was where I was probably at. And now I don't do railways, so haven't got any of the stuff, so they are. But yeah, they have. I've been to some, and they've been stunning. They've been really stunning. So yeah, totally agree that they can fit right in. I remember watching it was a program about some bloke who made one in his back garden, and it was his story, and it was mostly on concrete. But he fitted it into a very small garden, so it's not that you even need a lot of space. Norm, they're a small RC fish meant to entertain your cats. Really? I'm going to have to look for that. Oh, Norm. Yay. I mean, I can think up of... Am I making this up? You wound up the side and you put it in the bath and its tail flapped and it went. Does anyone remember that from when they were a kid? They were like a wind up fish and the tail flapped? Okay. Ravenson says LGB trains can also run in the rain. Yeah, but it's no fun watching them. I actually went for a walk in the rain when it rained in June, and it was warm rain, and that's the rarity. So yeah. I wouldn't recommend putting LGB trains into that much rain though. They're regularly water resistant, not waterproof. I don't know anything about it, so... yeah. Also, it depends if you're powering them on across the rail, you'll short your rails out eventually. If you're doing RC, it's fine. So Norm says, we have 4 seasons in California: fires, mudslides, earthquakes and riots. Oh, Tamsin, thank you. You remember those too. The fish with the tails that flap. That's good. Lily says, shame on no railways anymore though. I always feel so lonely in the hobby, and seeing you on the biggest tiny railway show, that was you, right? I'm misremembering, was a highlight. I've never even heard of the biggest tiny railway show, so I don't think that was me. Is that American? Okay. I went on a few podcasts. I don't remember that one. Sorry. But yeah, no, I did it for 20 years. I felt like I'd done it for long enough, and it was time to move on. I got everything I wanted to out of it, and I felt the need to try something new. And when I went into 3D print design, it is much easier to design for a sci-fi market than it is to design for a model railway cloud. Just so much easier. Russ says, I think garden railways are cool. They're just highly maintenance intensive. Yeah, I can imagine they would be. Sating, wind up fish. I had a dolphin. Ooh, that sounds fun. Intensive. Yep, I got that. Ravenson, and even in snow, very fascinating. Do they have those rotary snow ploughs that plume it out to the side? That would be fascinating to see. Tamsin had a shark one. That's cool. Lily, I got the title one. It was a show that had put a live steam engine through Scotland for over a week to Inverness. No, that wasn't me. I did the Great Model Railway Challenge. I didn't do that one. So yeah, but I remember the show you mean. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah, no, I remember it, but no, I did the Great Model Railway Challenge, but I don't know. I didn't even know that was happening until it came on TV. And I've been on the Hornby one as well, but with Port de Norwich, my last layout, which Tim now has. So I've been on a couple of actual TV shows and a few YouTube things, but yeah. I wouldn't worry about the memory. I don't think I've been on that. But I only briefly watched it. I didn't get inundated in it like I did with practically, or immersed even, sort of as I did with the Great Model Railway Challenge. So I'm not going to remember it much. And my memory is not what it used to be. So, but no, I do like the idea of doing underwater dioramas. And that's where the next few weeks, I'm actually going to pop via an aquascaping on the way back from somewhere that I'm going to, and have a look and maybe get a plant or two. I'm looking forward to getting some floating plants. I think you can get some really cute floating plants. It's really funny because I said, because I remember doing I did biology and I went to South America for 8 weeks, I said earlier, for just doing sort of a field trip in one of the summers. And I spent a lot of time looking at azolla, which is a floating fern, and measuring water and water changing and the effect on it. And it was azolla folliculoides or something. And I asked at the shop and they said, no, you can't get it. I have a feeling it's actually considered a weed in a lot of countries and it blocks up things. I think it's probably banned in the UK for that reason, because it's also maybe a bit more tropical than will grow here. But I think it's just probably there. But it was really beautiful. I remember that. And I remember spending a lot of time with this floating fern. So I was like, I get that. But you can't get it in this country. So Ravenson said, was this the live steam engine event with James May? He often does some crazy events. It's a different one, actually. I know the one Lily's talking about, Mac. It's the... It probably was the Little Big Tiny Train something. I don't remember the name either. And they basically laid a model railway, across large sections of Scotland, and ran a train across it. But it wasn't James May. I don't know if it was Dick Strawbridge or not, Lily. I can't remember who it was. So let's go with it was Dick Strawbridge and be definitive. But James May also does a lot of cool toy stuff, but not that one. Very exciting. There's been quite a lot of model railway TV programmes on over the years. It's been quite a resurgent recently. I think I was reading somewhere that people are swapping wine for Lego for de-stressing. And I think there is this thing now, and we're all adults watching this, and we're all doing things that could be considered toys or games. And certainly I now design for games rather than toys, but trains have particularly been called toys in the past. And adults have become almost like the largest market share for toy companies. Now I try and stop myself buying toys. I may have shown on my Patreon video this week that I do actually have a Jedi Temple Tanu set up from Young Jedi Adventures, which I thought would be about this size and turned out to be about this size. I should have realised the children were perhaps more grown up than I thought in the picture. But it's a really, really big market now for people. So I'm guessing that's why we're starting to see more model railway TV shows as they sort of try and drag in more adults and just, doing something about people who buy toys isn't as exciting as doing something about people who build things like Lego model railways. So, I think it was it's become a bit more of a thing, and I think people are wising up. And also, toys are getting more expensive. And so toy manufacturers are now aiming toys specifically at the adult market. And if you look at that in model railways, the model railways we played with as children are far less detailed. The model railway stuff that you buy as an adult is, you wouldn't let a kid play with it. Things would break. It's very finely detailed. There's like handrails everywhere. It is becoming that the toys are actually almost becoming more of a adult thing than they are of a child thing. And they're saying that this started with Gen Z and the millennials have followed on. I lose track of which generation's which. I know I'm X. Anyway, and after that, people have continued this trend with the younger generations as they're getting older, spending their disposable income on stuff like toys. So it's Oh. So Lily said it was Dick. She does remember that, just the title eludes her. John said, I'm assuming you're a her from Lily. Sorry, I shouldn't assume that. They had the locos from the Garden Railway show at the 16mm Scale Association show after the show was on TV. The Livestream loco was very badly beat up from all the times it fell off the track. Can you imagine it? It wasn't easy. Timber says it's the biggest little railway in the world. John then says a few people from the show were there as well. It'd be interesting. Timber says Dick Strawbridge leads a team of enthusiasts in an attempt to set a new world record to build the longest model railway in history, stretching 71 miles across Scotland from Fort William to Inverness. That's a long way from Fort Bill to Inverness. Wow. And then Lily, for de-stressing, anything whimsical is just the best for me. I'm not ashamed of it whatsoever because everyone's got an inner child and needs some levity in this dire madness. Yeah. Maybe you could combine, says Norm, your underwater diorama with the underwater Thunderbirds models. Hint, hint. So that's an idea. I'm looking at it, I was thinking ABS. Looks fine. I've still got all the Thunderbirds models. I just ran out of oomph. And I'm mid-build. I'm mid-build now on about 10 projects. I need to stop getting new projects. But this all started because I repotted a plant and put it in a vase of water and then thought I could do something better with this. I can make an underwater diorama. That is how my brain spirals. But yeah, the Thunderbirds are still there. Though I had quite a lot of multiple versions of some of them so that I could bash them together. And in the end, I sold a couple of the spares to somebody who wanted some Thunderbirds models. I still have one of every single one though. And then Russ says, listing photos on eBay can be deceiving too, size-wise. The Tanu Jedi Temple was that. Yeah, it was on Amazon and it wasn't actually, I should just read the sizing. Lily, I read underwear diorama and was confused for a minute, Norm. Yep, I bet you were. And Norm retracted his response. Lily, I like your thinking. Yeah, I'm not doing an underwear diorama. Oh wait, I've already done one. I did do a bikini car wash diorama once, which has loads of people, and the young lad's nicked his sister's bikini top and is running off after it. That's really fun. I've still got that one. It's a Foz scale one, I think. Lily, Norm, stop your snickering. So Russ. Okay, they're all lolling at each other. Timber says Jenny Kirk was in that challenge as well as the Great Model Railway Challenge. Yes. I think there were, he says I'm sure there were others that did both TV shows as well. I think a few people I heard mentioned it. Yeah, definitely a few that had crossed over. I think from both. Though, I mean, the biggest problem with all these TV shows is you need to take a lot of time off. The Great Model Railway Challenge was only 3 or 4 days. If you only did one heat, obviously more if you went to the final. But I can't remember how long the biggest little train was. I think they were there a bit longer. So that could have been a problem for some people. Timber was on neither. Oh well, I wouldn't worry. You were probably one of the audience, which we all needed. Prizer do make some saucy figures, says Stating. I remember looking through the Prizer book once and they do full nudes in every scale. I was like, oh, okay. Why do I need a full standing nude? It was actually quite a creepy catalogue in places, I have to say. It was quite thick. Yeah. And they do all their XXX ones, which are really funny, some of them. There we are. So, let's move on from the saucy figures before we get our adult rating for chatting about it. But yeah, there's definitely some saucy figures. I think it's a continental European thing, which, you know, the Brits sometimes put in on show, but putting them into layouts that they take to shows is quite hard. So I had one guy who was like, are there any kids around? No, come. And he'd turn a light on and he had this like naughty couple in one of the houses at the back. And if there were any kids around, he'd turn the light off so they couldn't see it because he didn't want to be done for showing off nudes. But yeah, Prize and Knock, Lily says. They both do. I don't think it's sinister. I think it's very continental European. And I actually have to admit that I did do a bordello once. I got this kit that was a bordello kit. Thomas York, beautiful kit. And then I had to put some nudes in. So you try Googling nudes. And then the person I got them from were Fun and Games models. That was also quite hard to Google. It was a very traumatic thing. They were beautiful nudes, can I say. And I had a bloke take, I've still got it, it's just over there. Bloke taking it, anyway, let's just go there. It was very lovely figures, very well done. But yeah, there we go. Lily says some neckbeards also get really weird about scenes on their layout. Yeah. Timber, I love catalogues. I could read the RS Components catalogue for hours. No one prints them anymore, shame. Yeah, it's true. Not the same on the internet with a search. Gets the answer too quick. Yeah, unless you use browse, but even then it can be hard. Stationing almost, I have the Adam and Eve set. Was doing a Pacific Island aircraft service diorama. Yeah, Norm is like, what the heck is a neckbeard? I presume it's one of those guys who doesn't shave his neck and so has a massive bushy beard, but Lily will probably tell us in a sec. And then Timber, without discovering other stuff. Yes, it is hard. That is the thing. Let's say certain individuals or certain attitudes towards women and poor hygiene to paint the archetype. That's probably where I was going with it, Lily, from what you said, but yeah. Bring back Maplin shops and catalogues, says Timber. The only thing was they didn't do stuff small enough, and I remember trying to cut down 5mm Maplin LEDs so that I could fit them into my dioramas, and I'd shave the plastic off. You could get 3mm ones, but I would shave the plastic off to fit them into the small spaces, and sometimes they'd fall apart if I'd shaved too much plastic off. Norm says, very funny, Lily. So, yeah, there's definitely certain individuals out there with attitudes like that. And in every hobby, whichever hobby you are, there's always going to be a group of people who go just a little bit too far in the hobby sometimes. And they are probably where I was going with that. What's CPC, Timber? Timber Surf said, top tip, CPC is the new Maplin. Oh, Tim said offshoot of Farnell, but cheaper. I'm going to have to Google that afterwards. Excellent. Lily, the show, by the way, was nice in that it yet again showed a few people who, in my experience, wouldn't typically be associated with model railways. I've got a long-suffering history with societies. Yeah, it's one of the reasons I left model railways in the end, was I got too bogged down in the politics, and it ceases to be fun after a while. So I refuse now to take part in competitions or anything like that. My hobby is a hobby. It's not a contest. So yeah. Stating says, I have the last Maplin catalogue. I read it for relaxation. I read fiction for relaxation. But I can see where a Maplin catalogue could have an appeal. You know, it's just, there's a lot to it. And it's like a little slice of history now, isn't it? There's stuff there you probably can't buy anymore. And stuff that you wouldn't want to because so much new stuff has come out. I mean, one of the things recently, LED strips have gone from LED strips to RGB NeoPixel LED strips to cob strips, which aren't NeoPixel normally, but are much more even on the lighting. You don't get the hot spots. And it's just over a matter of probably 10, 15 years of using them. The changes that have come on is just amazing to watch. Tim has put a link up. Mods can do that. cpcfinal.com. Very good for electronic bits, not affiliated. Thanks, Timber. I'll have to check him out afterwards. Did we go FF in the weeds for a moment? We might have, Russ. Off. We always go off in the weeds. Normally about sci-fi. We were watching Doctor Who, and so I mentioned that, and normally we go off in the weeds for that. We got as far as Colin Baker, did a few of him and have stopped for a bit longer. Lily, it just gets depressing not being able to share the hobby with people who are more like myself, because men of all ages who usually completely occupy it tend to have problematic attitudes. I haven't really had a lot of problems. I have to say, I feel very blessed. I mean, I had 2 stalkers probably in my entire time, one of whom did stalk me down a corridor at midnight, and I promptly turned around and yelled at them. So, you know, but I guess because I was well known as a modeller, I was kind of always accepted for my modelling. Or maybe it's just that I'm just used to that attitude from that age group. And it's an age group I grew up with, and so I don't actually see it as openly as some people. I don't know. But keyboard warriors, Russ is saying, keyboard can't type today, lol. But keyboard warriors are far worse nowadays than when I was at my stuff, really. People have a disconnect between being kind and being on the internet, which I think needs to be reconnected. But yeah, it can be difficult if you can't find people, Lily, who agree with you. But anyway, my Discord's got me on it. Come chat there. And there was one that I got put onto, but I don't do anything with. I think it was more for sort of sci-fi modelling, but they were all women. So there are definitely stuff around for women. I know they do a female model railroad one. Someone was talking about attitudes they'd had from a bloke, and I'm just like, yeah, you know, they blow up and I just ignore them and they go away. I get one guy asked me, it sends me his phone number every week and just says, call me and come stay. And I'm like, obviously I'm never going to do that with somebody I've never met. I'm not going to call you up. I rarely manage to get around to calling my own friends, let alone complete random people. And someone explained it to me that for me, I'm somebody they've watched on their phone. They could have been in bed watching it. They've watched me there in their house. They feel that they know me. And they forget that they're just literally an ID on a page. And I haven't met a lot of them. And so they don't understand that it's not the same in both directions, because they've not considered how they're perceived as somebody you just don't know. Which isn't to say that you can't make great friends on the internet, and I have, and all my RPGs are great, and John, you know, who's on, is one of those, and we chat for ages and it's really good. So I think there's definitely ways to connect, but I think it sometimes can be quite imbalanced if you're the known person and they're not. But anyway, we've got a minute left, so let me go through. Stating says that Maplin live again. They have an upline shop. Lily's, don't get me started on Doctor Who. Okay. Timber, my keyboard works perfectly. It's my 2 fingers that are the problems. That's a problem. And then Lily, I've been through every club in my area, and they're never an option because I would have been the only young person and woman, or I tried and ran into various social issues. I don't go to clubs for model railways, so I get that totally. I used to go to one, the NMRA, and it was brilliant. At the local club, it was really, really good. But they were like a group of people in common and quite niche in the UK. And it was really brilliant. And I do think there's a lot to be said. But, you know, I was just lucky with where I looked out with that group. Norm says, I'm talking applications for stalkers anyway. It is quite weird having a stalker. Anyway, not here in the US. Model railways have great hearts with a few minor exceptions, as in any group. Russ, my stalkers were both American. I've never had a problem like that with UK men. It's only ever been US men. Just throw that out there. It's a bigger country. I would expect more problems if I'm a bigger country. But yeah, any group will have weirdos in it. Trust me. Any group. Anyway, Digger says, wow, that's creepy though. Timber says the last decade has been much better for women in railroading. That's true. And Timber says it's always a few. And Timber mods for as many women as he does males. And I really appreciate my mods. So, time for me to go. We're getting to near the end of chat. I want to say thank you to my mods for Norm, Timber and Digger. They do an excellent job. They show up. They make sure I've got at least 3 people coming. So that's good. And it's really good. Thank you, guys. And guys, take care. Go try some translucent PLA or ASA or whatever. And guys, see you in a month. And hopefully I'll have loads more modelling to show off. Take care. It's been great. See you later, folks. Oh, where's the end?